Hi, Homeworthy. I'm George. Welcome to my home in Amsterdam.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is George Anthony Gottl. I am the Chief Creative Officer at FutureBrand Spatial. Welcome to my home here in Amsterdam. I've lived in this home since 2003. I ended up in this home because my partner and I started a business here in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands was the most sort of friendly country to open a business very easily here in Europe. And we found this wonderful old warehouse in the Jordaan district here in Amsterdam, and actually we started our business in the back of the house. It's an old sugar warehouse from 1763, and we absolutely fell in love with the architectural features of the home. It's full of wonderful wooden beams. It has a very low ceiling because obviously they used it to stack sugar boxes one on top of the other when they were using it as a warehouse. So it was never really a residence, but I fell in love with the kind of raw beauty of the space, and it reminded me a lot of kind of like a European version of like a Soho warehouse from New York, but much more antique, obviously, and with a lot more wood. I have a couple of personal styles because I also have a house in Italy, and that is much more Renaissanceian, sort of Italianate, classical. This house is much more contemporary, and it showcases a lot of contemporary art, which I'm an avid collector of. It also showcases a lot of wonderful Dutch designers who have created all kinds of amazing furniture. I will show you that a little bit when we walk through the house. I just love this house because it's kind of a reflection of when I landed in Europe and everything I loved about exploring Europe and all its different kinds of culture. I think Europe for me was a very exciting place to be because I had grown up in Los Angeles, which is, as you know, not a very old city. And for me, seeing all of the kind of historical aspects of the city, and as well as all of the kind of innovative design and art that you see here in Europe as well, and that those two things combined, I think, really come together in this house, the old house with the modern furniture. Welcome to our living area. I mean, we have a loft, so there are no real rooms. I think one of the unique things about this home is that the rooms are divided by curtains. We did that for a couple of reasons because, as you can see, we have some incredible old architecture in terms of the beams and the wooden columns, and we felt it would be a huge shame to divide this up with actual constructed walls. So we decided to use curtains because the curtains add a lot of drama and also a lot of flexibility. It allows us to open the space up even more. And then when we have guests, obviously we can divide it by closing the curtains. So the front of the loft area is what we call more of our formal area. This is where we entertain and have guests. We have quite a large dining room table. It can seat about 10 people. And I think one of the interesting things about the dining room table is that it's actually made of a couple of different kinds of pieces. The top is a 19th century work table, and the bases are made from 17th century garden tables. So it's a combination of a couple of different centuries. And then as dining room chairs, we have this wonderful Dutch designer named Piet Henneke, who was one of the first to use reclaimed wood to create furniture pieces, and you'll see his work throughout the house. He's one of my favorite designers, and these chairs I'm very particularly proud of because they're some of the original chairs that he created as a first edition, and I absolutely love them. I love them because they're both casual and they have such a beautiful proportion that they at the same time also have a slight formality and elegance to them. We also have quite a large sofa. And this sofa is also extremely interesting. This is also Piet Henneke. This is made of reclaimed army tents. It's in very durable sofa, as you can imagine. But again, His aesthetic is very sort of constructivist. It's just very kind of linear, very rational, and again, in terms of my sense of aesthetic, I love his sense of proportion and the dimensions that he gives his furniture pieces. The same thing with the coffee table. It is also made from reclaimed wood, and it's also a Pete Hennig piece. As you can see, Pete Hennig's my favorite designer. We have a lot of his stuff in the house. But in terms of furniture, those are kind of the noteworthy pieces, but I also have quite an extensive art collection, which I'm very proud of. We have many well-known artists as well as unknown artists. This shield that says McDonald's on it is by a very famous British artist team called the Chapman Brothers. They are in the Saatchi Gallery and actually became very famous because of a show called Sensation in London that was put on by Saatchi. We have several of his pieces. Another famous and rather favorite artist of mine is Daniel Ashram, and you'll see more of his pieces later on in our little tour. This is Felix the Cat clock, made from volcanic ash and also some precious minerals that are embedded in the ash. This is a technique that he started many years ago, and he's quite famous for it. This is one of my favorite pieces. We also have a mixture of some taxidermied pieces. These are things that I found in vintage stores, the crow with the crown in the cloche, as well as the cobra in the cloche on one of the pedestals. These are sea sponges from Japan, and these are given as wedding gifts in Japan because what happens is a little seahorse will get up inside the sponge and actually live its entire life inside of it. And so these sponges represent this kind of union, this permanent union between two beings. So this is considered a very precious wedding gift in Japan because it represents this union of two beings together, just like a married couple. We also have this wonderful photograph of an owl, and even though it's not taxidermied, it's in the process of being taxidermied, and this is created by a rather well-known Dutch art team, Darwin and Sinka, and this owl is actually photographed in the process of being preserved. What I love about it is it almost looks like an angel, and it's being preserved in a white fluid so that it'll be ready for mounting. And I just love that it's the process of being preserved, but at the same time it also looks like it's in like an angel that's appearing in flight. These are halogen light bulbs, and I love the unit it's on, the fixture it's on is made actually of glass and these very simple screwed together sockets. And again, this is really following sort of Dutch design. I was a big fan of droog design when it first came onto the scene in the late 90s, and that's where Pete Hennig is from, this kind of light fixture. A lot of the sensibilities that we have in this apartment come from droog design and that aesthetic, which I absolutely love because it's very utilitarian, but at the same time has a certain elegance and obviously fits perfectly in this house because this house is sort of repurposed in a way, right? It used to be an old sugar warehouse that's now a home. I love this piece. This is by an artist, a Dutch artist called Marilyn Mandersloot, and she's famous for making these really squishy, almost like teddy bear kinds of sculptures. This, even though it looks soft, is actually hard, and it is made with the skin of, I think it's a cowhide, and she made this kind of what appears to be this stuffed animal. And I love that she's left like the threads still hanging because it kind of gives it this very melancholy appearance. I think it's really beautiful, very unusual. She works now with Hermès doing a lot of window displays for them, and she's also been commissioned to do some quite substantial pieces around the city, big sculptures for parks and stuff, of these big, cute, like kind of teddy bear looking animals. I have so many collectibles. This is like one of the first pieces ever created out of polycarbonate, super light. And again, this is all part of Droog design, which, when they were booming, they were really creating incredible, innovative design that was coming out of the Netherlands in the late 90s, and I just loved it. When I first saw these things, I was just in awe of how innovative and imaginative the designs were. And I'm fortunate enough to have collected it when it used to be affordable, because now these things cost a fortune. And I'm so lucky to have these in the house because, quite frankly, they'll probably be in museums. I know Pete and Ake's in a museum. I believe that the polycarbonate chair is also in the museum because they were quite breakthrough for the time. I started as a fashion designer. I'm a Parsons graduate in fashion design, and I grew up in LA and studied in Los Angeles at the Parsons School of Design. After graduating, I became a fashion designer for a Californian surfwear brand, Jimmy Z. I then opened a interior design store doing these special kind of preserved flowers and iron furniture and antiques for a little while. And then the Rodney King riots hit in 1998, I believe. I don't remember when they actually happened. I think 96. And LA was completely devastated by that incident. And a friend of mine said, George, why don't you move up here to Oregon and get a job at Nike? We need great, talented designers at Nike to design clothing. And so I moved to Oregon, to Portland, Oregon, and designed clothing there for many years, and eventually became actually the creative director of the American Apparel Design Division. They moved me to Europe to open a lifestyle division here in Europe, and that's what got me here to Amsterdam, because Nike's headquarters in Europe are in Hilversum, which is about 40 minutes away from the city center. And I fell in love with Amsterdam, I fell in love with Europe. It actually felt more like home than Los Angeles, and I've been here ever since. So Nike moved me to Amsterdam, then I moved to London, and then when I was in London, I got headhunted and moved to Italy, to Bologna, for 2 years designing apparel. I became the global creative director of a company called Mandarina Duck, and I worked 2 years in Bologna. And then my sister suggested that I open my own business, and we came back to Amsterdam, which is very business friendly, to open our business Uxus, doing interior design and consumer experience. So basically designing retail stores, restaurants, hotels, and the company grew from the two of us in the back of this house to over 100 employees, and we ended up selling the business to a much larger company called FutureBrand, which I still work for today as the Chief Creative Officer. And that's where I am right now. And then we bought a beautiful house in Italy. And that was actually one of my dreams. We have a house on Lake Como, which is just heaven on earth. And then we have our hallway, which actually doubles as our closet. This long row of curtains that you see are actually a giant closet full. I mean, you can take the guy out of the business of fashion, but you can never take the fashion out of the guy. We have a lot of clothes. So this is camouflaging all of that. Here in the hallway, I also have one of my favorite pieces. This is done by an artist in the Netherlands called The Idiots. That's what they call themselves. And I love this because it's this very strange combination of glass, animal hair, and a hairnet. And it's this weird, no one knows what everyone always asks me, what is this? And it has this organic, almost animal-like quality, but obviously it's not referential to anything. I think it's really, really beautiful. I went nuts when I saw it because to me it's one of the most original kind of sculptures I've seen. We also have this photograph, which is quite interesting, and it has Hollywood on it, obviously because I actually grew up very close to this sign. So for me it's a little reminder of home. But it was done by Daniel Ashram, the sculptor that we've purchased many pieces from, as a photographic series that he did, and I just went nuts because obviously that reminds me of my hometown, LA. And then here we also have, this is actually, believe it or not cardboard, it's ceramic, and it's done by Robert Rauschenberg, a very famous American mid-century artist who's in really substantial collections all over the world. I mean, he's in the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art. This is a fantastic piece, and it's a funny story because my husband and I were in New York, and we walked into a gallery, and I was complaining, like, how ridiculous is it that, you know, they're just taking some cardboard boxes and nailing them on a wall and charging $20,000 for each box. And the lady at the desk fortunately did not hear me like complaining, and said, "Oh, do you like the pieces?" And she said they're Robert Rauschenberg, and I was like, "What?" Because I didn't know the story behind them. And what's interesting is that Robert Rauschenberg was fascinated by recycling materials, and he used to use cardboard a lot in his work. And one day he was asked to commission a series of sculptures, and he went to a ceramic studio in Florida and brought them, and he didn't know what to do, and he, again, being a very sort of spontaneous artist, I guess, didn't know what to do, and brought some cardboard boxes, saw some cardboard boxes in a ceramic studio, nailed them up on the wall and said, "Here, make a sculpture out of this." And the ceramicist actually made the sculptures, and he came back a few weeks later, and he said, "Well, where are they?" And the ceramicist said, "They're on the wall." And I had the same issue with these sculptures. I could not believe that they were actually not cardboard. They're actually ceramic. I don't know if you can hear the clinking of the ceramic, but it's amazing. The work and the level of reproduction is absolutely fantastic. So at that point, I absolutely fell in love with them and had to have them, and I bought a set of two. And so, yeah, I absolutely love these, even though they're kind of strange because they just look like cardboard boxes that have been nailed onto the wall. But I love the story behind them, and of course, they belong to a very, very well-known artist. So for me, it's quite a beautiful thing to have. I love to entertain. We love to have friends over. We do dinner parties all the time. It's something that I really enjoy. I think it's the eclectic assortment of things. Everything we have in here we absolutely love and has a wonderful story behind it. So for me, I think that gives the house immediately a very soulful kind of quality, because everything that's been purchased and everything that we have on display is something that I find beautiful and interesting. And so it's all kind of an expression of my contemporary taste, because again, my house in Italy has a very different look, much more Renaissance sort of antique. And then we're in the area of the family area, is what we would call it, or the family room. This is where my husband and I spend most of our time. Obviously, it's where the kitchen is, and we have this wonderful big open plan kitchen to sort of match our kind of loft lifestyle. And this is, this is where we hang out as a family, myself, Tina, and my husband. And we also have more of Daniel Ashram's work here. These are wonderful telephones, again, done with the same technique that you saw the Felix the cat clock made out of. So this is also volcanic ash that has been molded into these wonderful vintage phones. And I love that they're a triptych. I think they're just so stunning and wonderful. And these are some of the first he's done with his casting technique, so they're actually quite valuable, because they're a prototype that he's never done before. And this is also Daniel Ashram, and I love this one because it's like he did a whole series of kind of like hidden identities, and I think everyone immediately recognizes that this is Winnie the Pooh. But again, I love that it's just this like kind of wrapped teddy bear. It's a little bit dark because obviously the wrapping and the tying looks a bit S&M-y. But what I love about it is that it has, this like, you recognize what it is, but at the same time it's hidden. And I believe like the first one he did was with his kid's stuffed animal. But he perfected this technique. It looks incredibly soft, but it's actually made out of like a marble-like material. It's been cast, and you can see the casting is absolutely perfect. Things like this opening here are incredibly difficult to do, and I just think that this is an absolutely wonderful, very humorous, but at the same time dark piece of art, and I like that contrast. We also have these wonderful pieces by Banksy, and I really love the story behind these. These are, and again, they're cardboard, which seems to be a reoccurring theme in my life. And this is banners that were used during a war protest in London. And I love them because I love that they're on a piece of material. They're not just a print. And obviously the anti-war message for me really resonates as well. And I love that they have a history behind them. Behind them, behind the actual print itself, or behind the frame, I actually have the newspaper article showing the people protesting holding these banners. So it's quite, it's wonderful that this was actually used for a moment in time. So it's not just a piece of art that was created for art's sake, but it was actually something used to protest, an anti-war movement. For us, the dining table is really useful. I don't really like islands myself, so I like sitting at a table. And this is a wonderful table. This is Japanese, all handmade. There's a wonderful store here called Time and Style that we have several pieces from, and they're known for their Japanese craftsmanship. So this is an incredible, all of this was made by hand. It's just amazing, the quality and the level of craftsmanship. Absolutely fell in love with it and had to have it for the kitchen, so there we go. We love having this open plan kitchen because again it makes it so easy to entertain and to have friends over and everyone can chit chat while meals are being prepared. The kitchen was designed and installed by a Dutch kitchen company called Einsteel. And they are, I love their aesthetic because it's super kind of almost slightly industrial, kind of clunky, kind of heavy. But at the same time, again, the proportions are very refined. So I think, to me, that defines sort of Dutch style. It's very utilitarian, very robust in proportion, but also still somehow has a type of elegance. And as you can see, it works beautifully with this very refined Japanese table set that we have. So I love, again, that mix of kind of almost slightly industrial with the very refined, handcrafted. Even though my husband and I really don't cook very often. Usually when we're catering, when we were entertaining, we cater. But in any case, I'm very good at displaying the food, so that's my talent, my ability. I think it's always nice, and again, it depends on on your budget. But I think it's always nice to if you have quite a few people over, it's always nice to have someone there to help serve and pick up things, because if you're the host and you're concerned always about making sure that people aren't leaving glasses around or that people are getting enough to drink and to eat, then you don't have time to socialize with the guests that you've invited. So for me, it's always really, really wonderful to pay someone a couple $100 to come over and help you. Sometimes students are happy to do it, to help you pick up stuff, serve, and also greet guests when they walk in the door. It depends on how many people you have over. Obviously, if you only have 5 or 6 people over, it's one thing, but sometimes we have 40, 50, 60 people in here, and it just becomes very crowded. And just to make sure that you can greet everyone, that you're a gracious host, having someone help is a big, big plus. We tend to like to serve spritzes because they're light and everybody enjoys them. Wine, obviously, is always a hit. So I personally like red wine. And, sparkling wine is always really something very, very popular. My personal favorite cocktail is a Negroni. That's my go-to. I just love them. But they're a little bit complicated when you have a big party trying to get all those made. This is one of the things I love about the Dutch. When I first got here, for some reason, a lot of Dutch households use these factory lights in their dining areas. And I just love the way they look. They have this, and I think, again, because we're in a warehouse that in a pseudo-industrial, well, it's not a pseudo-industrial, it was built as an industrial building. I think this really just fits in beautifully, the kind of raw simplicity of a factory light. And the Dutch used to, for some reason, when I first moved here in 2003, they were everywhere. A lot of the Dutch families would use these kind of big, heavy industrial lights over their dining room tables. I think because of just maybe, the Dutch love to repurpose things. And I also really love that as well, because there's something about something old that's being used in a new way that creates a lot more magic and almost poetry. And that's what I love about this space, is that even though it was built as a warehouse, now that it's a home, it has this wonderful kind of raw character, very simple, but at the same time very, very welcoming and very warm, even though it's quite a large space. We have about 2,500 square feet open plan. So, it's quite a big space, but it doesn't feel big because it's the way the beams are and the way the space is divided, it feels very homey, cozy, and welcoming. I guess the highlight of this area, especially in the summer, is the terrace, and we can go out there in a second because the view is spectacular. The sofas are low. Again, I just love laying down watching TV, and so they're low. They're also done by Time and Style, so these are Japanese. So I think, again, it has that futon kind of quality about them, which I think is really beautiful. And then we just have it mixed with, again, more peat hennache, this wonderful old army trunk that I found at a flea market. I'm not sure exactly what the history is, but it's great for storage, which I love. And then, mid-century modern furniture combined with everything else just because the clean lines work so well. One of the highlights of the family area is this amazing terrace. And the reason I love it so much is not only do we have it lushly planted, so it's quite relaxing in the summer, but it has a spectacular church view, which is the Westertoren, one of the renowned churches here in Amsterdam. It has an incredible history. The Anne Frank house is like only a few houses away from the church, so there's a lot of history that took place there. Sad history, unfortunately, but I think it's still a beautiful, beautiful church. I love the crown. The crown was gifted by, I believe, a Russian Tsar to Amsterdam, and it really finishes off the church. It makes it sort of this like crowning jewel for the church. Yeah, the view is wonderful. It's over the rooftops of Amsterdam, so you can see all the beautiful rooftops and some of the landmarks around. What do I love most about this home? I think this home for me is such an amazing collection of memories. Arriving here in Europe, over 20 years ago, it was a little daunting. I didn't know anybody. I was, recruited to do this, and I willingly and happily took it. But I didn't really have an idea of what it meant to be like separated from all your friends, all your family, and more importantly, taken out of a culture that you know and put into a new culture that's completely different. So for me, this home is a reminder of that journey, and so it has a very special place in my heart. One of the wonderful things, I think the most unusual feature of the house is that the rooms are divided by curtains. Our master bedroom is basically an indoor tent. I love it because every day we have this ritual of opening and closing the curtains in the morning, closing them at night and opening them in the morning. We have this beautiful view of the canal. I'm a fan of peat hennache, so the wallpaper is even peat hennache, and again, it looks like recycled wood. The lamps are Philip Stark. They're the original gun lamp that he created, and the message behind that lamp is that guns shouldn't be used to shoot, but guns could be used for other things, and so he made a pair of what looks like machine guns into these golden lamps. My husband loved them, so we got a pair. I think they look very nice in here. I like the gold touch against the raw wood. That contrast and that mixture for me really is something I really love. And the bed itself, linen sheets and just nice neutral tones that work with the wallpaper. Just like the loft, the bathroom is also open to the space. There are no walls that go straight up, but it's a wonderful combination of a shower and a bathtub, and again, we have lots of artwork in there. This is a famous artist who I absolutely love. His name is Anthony Gottl, and he did a whole series of portraits, and also the photograph he did of the two chimneys that basically the smoke come together again, this idea of union and coming together and marriage, which I think is a wonderful theme. Home is where love is, so where my husband is and my little puppy, Valentina, who's also Italian. She's from Milan. Well, Homeworthy, thanks so much for coming by. That was really fun. I hope you found my house interesting. It's time for me to take Tina for a walk, so I have to go. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.